Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mr. Sports Show, ACTV. I'm joined by two very distinguished guests. First of all, my regular co-host, Mr. Joshua Fitch, former Austin Tom Fitch graduate, still doing high school football.
Absolutely.
As the color commentator. Do you do pregame too out there, Josh?
Yeah, me and Ken Carreno, along with my friend Tom Franken, who's also in the program at YSU, do a pre, halftime, and postgame show as well as the broadcast.
And my longtime buddy and media colleague, Mike Case. He's the news anchor at WFMJ TV 21 on the morning show. How are you, Mike?
I am good. Thanks for having me, you guys. It's really cool.
Always
Absolutely.
a pleasure to have you, Mike. And you have a long-time background. You and Dana, I remember you doing sports together at TV 21. So I know that's where your heart, I mean, you're just a sports fan at heart.
Yeah, I started in Akron. We didn't do it to the extent, our high school football coverage was not to the extent that we have at Channel 21, but we were doing like 10, 11 games on Friday nights. We were pretty excited about that. Then I did some work for sports. It was called Sports Channel Ohio back in the day, doing some high school games for them. And I still do some things for Time Warner once in a while and keep my hand in the high school football bucket as much as I can because I enjoy it so much. So
anyway. You do. I know that's where his heart is. Okay, on our last program, I guaranteed you that the Indians would take a world championship.
How'd that go?
It didn't go well, Mike. They were up 3-1, and then they lose the final three. I mean, you're so close.
Right.
It's Cleveland.
You know, every game after we won our last victory in Game 5, right, it was like, okay, we got to get this one. This is a must-win game. And then when it came back to Game 6, this is absolutely a must-win game. And then when they lost Game 6, you know, that pit in our stomachs, man, it really took to a whole nother level because we did not want to see a Game 7. We said it right from the beginning. In this series, we don't want to see a Game 7 despite Corey Kluber pitching for us.
I think it was Game 4, right?
Game 4, they were up 3 games to 1.
We lost 5, 6, and 7. And I remember that. Was it a 3-2 defeat? And we just needed that one hit to come through. What were your thoughts on that?
First, I was excited they made it to the World Series.
And you were covering it for 21. You were hanging outside.
We got to go. We got to feel the atmosphere. I felt like they were playing with house money. But then when they got up 3 games to 1, I thought they can win this thing. They should win this thing. You should be able to do one more game, especially if you're coming home for 2 of them. And when they didn't, that was a big blow to my tummy. I was hurting on that one. I did not. I don't know if I didn't really think, every time they won a game in that series, I was kind of surprised. I never really went into a game confident that they were going to win the game. Game 1, I was a little leery because you just didn't know how Kluber was going to hold up. He was fantastic. Right. Game 4, he pitches again, and you think, well, maybe they'll catch up to him this time. He was fantastic. And then Game 7, I just had an awful feeling about it from the get-go. And when they got up big, I just didn't think they could come back. To their credit, they did. I mean, how great was it to hit that home run and come all the way back and tie the game, and then Kipnis turns on that one, and you think,
for a split second,
the very next batter,
right? And you think maybe they pulled this thing off, and it just wasn't. And then it went to. Then they get the rain delay, and I think that helped the Cubs a little bit.
Absolutely,
they regrouped. They had a team meeting, and they came out on fire, and it changed the course of everything. Francona named American League Manager of the Year recently. But some criticize that he burnt the bullpen to a crisp. And, of course, there's going to be a lot of second-guessing. Miller and Kluber certainly looked fatigued in Game 7, and they were 2 big arsenals for us.
Well, here's the thing. When you have a depleted pitching staff like the Indians did, and you have an ace, quote-unquote ace, coming out of the bullpen in Andrew Miller, you have to use him up, especially in the World Series. He did so many great things leading up to the postseason, which John, me, and you talked about last show, and during the postseason against Boston and Toronto, and you had to use him. He pitched good in the World Series, not as great as he did in the prior 2 series, but he had to be out there. He was our best chance in those mid-game, late-inning situations.
No Ryan Merritt, though.
I know.
A big hero in American League Championship Series.
I was a little surprised at that.
I thought maybe they would use him.
But I would never argue with Francona as the Manager of the Year. I mean, everything he did until the last game turned to gold. I would argue with some of the stuff Joe Maddon did. Way more than I would argue with anything that Francona did. I thought he left Kluber in one batter, 1 inning too long. Other than that, I didn't really see any problem with what he did. Naquin made me nervous in center field, you know, that whole thing. But Madden taking Hendricks out of that game, I was shocked.
Right.
The bunting at the end, or pretending to bunt, or wanting to bunt, I mean, they would have burned Joe Maddon's house down if some of those things didn't work out, and he had a chance to win the World Series. He is really lucky that I think the Cubs won that World Series. Just my opinion.
Let's talk about the NFL a little bit and talk about some of the...
It's going to be about the Raiders. It's going to be like a half hour on the Raiders.
Yeah, what are they, 7-2 now?
7-2.
Oh, man.
Come on, Mike, you know I love
How'd
my
they ever
Raiders.
lose 2?
I don't know, but the AFC West this year with Kansas City 7-2, Oakland 7-2, Denver 7-3, arguably maybe the best division in the NFL.
Absolutely. Trevor Siemian for the Denver Broncos has been phenomenal. Derek Carr seems like he's taking that next step into becoming an elite quarterback, leading this team to 7-2. They've really been fun to watch. It's been a complete team effort between him and Amari Cooper outside, and their defense with Khalil Mack. It's really been fun to watch, and they're at 7-2 for a reason. And I think they're going to win the division and go to the postseason.
I think they're all a little bit different too. Like Oakland has that offense, fantastic offense. They can put up points. Denver's defense, you saw them in the Super Bowl, fantastic. Kansas City does a little bit of everything. They came out of that Carolina game. I don't know how they pulled that off, but they did. They have a fantastic coach, maybe the best coach of the bunch, in Andy Reid, and Alex Smith. He just does what he needs to do to win. They're all kind of
He's
a little
not
bit
overly
different.
flashy. He just gets the job done. He continues
I know, and
to
I
win.
think everybody kind of was down on him when he left San Francisco, and he shows that he can do the job if he has the right guys around him.
Right, he's the perfect game manager.
And look at Colin Kaepernick now, who replaced Alex Smith. Definitely having his issues out there.
For sure.
New England, Tom Brady, since he's been back, he's been on fire. They're 7-2. Gronkowski could be out for a while. He has a lung and chest issue that they're looking into. But the Patriots and Tom Brady just keep right on rolling.
Is he the MVP, would you say?
That's interesting.
Even though
Can he get
doesn't win
MVP missing the first 4 games?
Yeah, that's my question, because obviously they held it together. I mean, they played pretty well those first 4 games. But when he comes back, they are at a different level, aren't they?
Right, and another thing that goes into that is the other typical candidates for MVP. Cam Newton has a major down year. Aaron Rodgers is having a major down year as well. So I think that just boosts the case even more for Tom Brady.
He's 39 years old. Have we ever seen this kind of productivity out of somebody that's approaching 40?
Just Peyton Manning. I mean, that's been about it, right?
Do you see any signs of Tom Brady slowing down at all?
He doesn't look 39 when I watch him.
He's at the peak of his game.
He came in, granted, we said this last time too, I think. He came in against the Cleveland Browns, so no. But he came in without missing a beat. His receivers, I mean, they knew what to expect when Tom Brady was going to come back on the football field. The running game has been there. The defense has been there. It's all coming together for him.
And then the Miami Dolphins have won 4 in a row, and suddenly you see Miami sitting with a 5-4 record. Tannehill and company, what do you think?
When you watch them against the Browns, I mean, I was sitting there thinking, I can't believe they spent a top 10 pick on this quarterback. He was just so pedestrian, so average. And now, as you can see, once you start getting going a little bit, you play a little bit better. They're on a roll, but they're not going to catch New England, I don't think. And if somebody said, hey, they might lose the next 3 games, you'd be like, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, because we certainly saw some flaws when they played the Browns.
And a big credit to that 4-game winning streak for the Dolphins, like you said, John, has been their running back, Jay Ajayi. He's had career games 2 straight weeks, and he's been a big contributor.
He sent Arian Foster into retirement. I mean, what a shock. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's problems. Mike, you're a Browns fan, right?
I like the Browns. I grew up loving the Steelers, though, so I have no problem with the Steelers.
The Steelers are 4-5 now. Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, he's back. There's questions whether, he's at 100%. He's nowhere near what he was prior to the injury. But they've got to get rolling again.
That team and the Green Bay Packers, I can't figure out why they're playing the way they're playing. I can't figure it out. I don't blame Ben Roethlisberger at all. I thought he was great against the Cowboys. Something's going on with that defense, though.
Right. How about Elliott? First one right up the middle. Everybody's playing in tight.
I thought the first one, they did it on purpose. They let him score on purpose. But I can't even tell on the last one because he just ran right up the middle and nobody was even around
and
the
once
guy.
you get through that first wave of defenders.
Yeah, especially with the Dallas offensive line. They collapsed the entire Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line on that play, and he literally walked right into the end zone.
So how good is Dallas? I mean, let's just jump right to that.
Well, I thought it was very classy of Tony Romo to come out. I mean, because of controversy, Jerry Jones loves Romo. Romo wants his job back. If you heard the speech, he said, this is Dak Prescott's team now. And I support him. He said, it's killing me to stand on the sideline because I'm itching and ready to go. But just a totally classy move by Tony Romo. But Prescott and Elliott, they're tough.
It is totally his team, like Tony Romo said. We, on our last episode, were talking about the Cowboys. They've played 4 games and haven't lost since. So this team is sitting at 8-1. They're running away with the division, especially going in this later part of the season. And they have a chance to do something special with 2 rookies.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, the guy, you watch Prescott play, and you see other rookie quarterbacks play. He completes like 70% of his passes. He doesn't make mistakes, and that's been the one problem with Romo is that interception at the end of the game when he's trying to do a little bit too much. He's just been so good, so solid. He hasn't been great. He's just been solid and smart, and it's just so rare for a rookie to be that good. You know what I mean?
And he's got the athleticism. He reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson when he came out in his rookie year for the Seahawks and led them to the playoffs.
But bigger.
Yes, bigger, and he's got a stronger arm.
So what's Tony Romo's future?
I don't. That's what I was saying.
They trade him away. He wants to play. He's ready to go.
I can't see why you'd trade the guy. I mean, maybe he's worth something, but the trades nowadays in the NFL, you get like a 4th-round pick for really good players. And you just don't know. I mean, how do you know that this guy, this Prescott's, eventually, just like with Kaepernick, you mentioned Kaepernick, eventually the NFL catches on to a guy. Eventually they figure somebody out. It may take him a little while, but what if it takes 2 more weeks?
Correct.
Then you're in trouble and you don't have a quarterback that can play well. Well, here's your guy that's a backup. Is he fragile? You bet. And would a team want to trade for a guy that's that fragile? I mean, it seems like he gets hit and he's down. The last 2 years, he hasn't played hardly at all.
Exactly. And you bring that up with defenses catching on. Look at Robert Griffin III in his rookie year. He went to a division title with 2 rookies. Alfred Morris was a rookie that year as well. Came in, won that division title. The next year, totally fell apart. Didn't make the playoffs.
They're catching on to Wentz now. I mean, you hit him by storm there in the beginning, and then eventually these coaches are just so good, and these defenses are so good that they figure things out.
And meantime, with the Rams, another guy prior to the draft, along with Wentz, Jared Goff's going to make his first start. I think the last rookie quarterback to get an opportunity to be a starter.
Why? Why did it take so long?
Exactly.
Was he that bad that they?
I don't know.
That they had to wait for them to.
They had Keenum at quarterback, of course.
I know.
And he was so outstanding.
They've had 2 games where it was 9-6 or something like that, right? Come on,
I don't know.
Let's get him in there.
Their mindset had to have been with Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher frustrates me at times.
Really? I think he's a good coach.
He frustrates. I don't know. Sometimes his tactics only because they were playing competitively in the division early on in the season. So I think that's why they were rolling with Case Keenum in the beginning. But now that's kind of tapered off. So I think it's time to make that move, and they have.
All right, Cleveland, the Browns, only winless team in the NFL. They're 0-10.
So far, as of this taping.
Yeah, 0-10. There's times they're competitive. There's times they're not. Most recently, but RG3 has been cleared to begin practice, non-contact. The quarterback situation's been totally unsettling from start to finish, starting with RG3, and then you got McCown, you got Kessler forced into action. RG3's back now. What's the future of the quarterback position with Cleveland and Hugh Jackson?
Well, let me ask you this first. Do you think that's been the problem?
No, I
mean
think
this year, do you think that's been the problem? I mean, a couple games when they got hurt, back like that, and then Terrell Pryor's playing quarterback. I mean, other than that, though, the guys, if you look at their stats, they've been much better than they've been in the past.
Yes.
Their defense has been horrible.
Their defense is bad.
Their offensive line has always been shaky. Their run game is non-existent for the most part.
Right.
Of all the problems they've had, and the quarterback, because we all complain about it, and we really want some franchise quarterback in there, that hasn't been the problem, which is interesting, and it kind of speaks to Hugh Jackson and how I think he's pretty good. I don't know for sure. You knew him for the Raiders. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm a big fan of Hugh Jackson. I've always thought he had a brilliant offensive mind. I think it's something Cleveland needs to stick with. I was hoping for a little bit better results than 0-10, and he's made some questionable moves this year. For example, the remover of Cody Kessler
in the most recent game.
Just kind of benched him at halftime, and everybody was shocked. Put McCown in. It was absolutely miserable.
Right, and it was at that point the Browns still had a chance to. That was a winnable game coming out of the half, and they made that switch. So
Until
that
McCown went under center.
Exactly, that was a very questionable call. He ended up throwing 2 interceptions and lost a fumble.
And he said he wasn't prepared to play.
Exactly. Coach Hugh Jackson said he was trying to provide a spark because Kessler wasn't hitting his throws. He wasn't accurate that day. He wasn't really moving down the field, but he did have a lead in that Thursday night game against Baltimore.
Let me ask you this. Would you rather be 0-10 or would you rather be 2-8 or 3-7? I'd rather be 0-10.
Right, because you're going to get that number 1 draft pick.
Let's talk about those draft picks.
So
exactly.
maybe this front office, which we think is a bunch of maniacs who doesn't know what they're doing, maybe they do know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this is exactly, I wouldn't want to say this on the record in front of them, but maybe this is exactly what they want to do. You know what I mean? I don't know.
This strategy has been used in the NFL and other sports for a long time now, too. So
Did they make a good move in trading with New England for their star linebacker in Collins and giving up a third-round draft choice? I mean, you talk about a team whose strategy in the future seems to be implying that we're going to build for the future, stockpiling the draft picks, and then you go and trade one of those premium picks for a linebacker like Collins, who you're not even sure you could sign.
Right. The biggest question is signing him in the offseason. He might walk. There's a good chance he walks for that third-round pick. However, I think the Browns needed to do something to try and add a piece defensively and try and get this run game.
Hasn't worked out so far.
It hasn't. It has. He's made plays. I think he has 2.5 sacks already with us. So he's been making the plays, but overall it's just not working out, Mike.
Well, you got to try somehow to get some players in there. Are you going to build it through the draft? Well, if you look at their draft from last year, man, that may not be the solution. Let's try maybe to get some people, some young guys that you can build your defensive around. I look at that defense and I see him. I see maybe a guy up front. In my mind, I don't think Joe Hayden wants to be on the team anymore. I mean, anytime he has a chance to not play, he does not play. I see a lot of these guys walk, and I think they're just tired of it. So anytime you can get a young guy that you may be able to sell on the coach, who I think people respect, or at least something that has to do with the town or the culture or something, and just give it a shot. I think you got to give it a try. I mean, in other words, you're just going to get another third-round guy that may work out for you and may not. And the guys they've had, these third-round picks, who do you got?
Exactly.
And guys, I don't know if you feel, but we touch on the offensive line difficulties and everything, and this is why, whether it's Kessler or anyone else, you can't draft your franchise quarterback now because you don't have the wall in front of him to protect him because he's going to go down, as evidenced by the injuries at the quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns this year. So does Cleveland go for a quarterback next year, given the fact that they have so many woes on the offensive line? Do they look for that franchise guy, or do you wait to continue to build that front wall in front of him first?
I'd go after it. I mean, if they saw someone they liked, and obviously they didn't like the guys from last year, otherwise they would have taken Goff or Wentz. They had the chance.
Yes.
I mean, they had the draft picks to do it. So obviously they didn't care for him that much. Why? I don't know. Are they wrong? Maybe. I mean, maybe they're totally off, but if you have the guy that you like, you got to get him, and it's not just a line that has to protect the quarterback. You got to get some running game.
Yeah,
I mean, these guys that are good quarterbacks now have good run games, and you saw how good Ben Roethlisberger was last week when Bell ran the ball for him. And you see how good Prescott is when Elliott runs the ball for him. If you don't get guys that can block for the run and get some scheme where you can get some yards, they're sunk. They're just going to send everybody. You're going to have obvious passing downs, and they're going to send the house.
Yeah, and that's what they do now, and I think they'll go forward as well because the Browns are going to have to continue drafting that guy that they think is going to be their quarterback until they get it right. Because, we talked about the defense being problems and the offensive line being problems. Well, the quarterback this year has been the underlying problem, but it's still a problem. Robert Griffin III isn't going to be the solution. It's not going to happen. Cody Kessler, he hasn't really turned the ball over. He's been effective. He's got this team down the field in certain situations. He's still young. He doesn't have that killer instinct yet, so you don't know.
Cody Kessler or Alex Smith that we talked about, kind of
game managers. That's what they are. But a game manager doesn't work without a good offensive line and a good running back, like you said, Mike.
And Bob Greasy, back in the 1970s for the world champion Miami Dolphins, multi-time champions, was a game manager. There were times that he'd throw less than 10 times a game and rely on Kick, Zonka, and Mercury Morris in the backfield, and then he had Paul Warfield to throw to when he needed a home run ball. A couple of teams really struggling. Carolina, Cam Newton, 3-6.
Enigma.
And how about the Packers at 4-5?
Can't figure them out. Why don't these teams, and these got Jordy Nelson back.
Exactly.
Why aren't they playing better? I cannot figure them out. Falcons can't figure out. Packers, like you said, Carolina, although Newton's been banged up, but he's not the whole team. I mean, they played great on defense last year. They scored a ton of times on defense last year. I haven't seen that from them. Tampa Bay, I can't figure out. There's a lot of teams in the NFL that are just like right around the 3-6 to 6-4 mark that you would not put money on every week because you just don't know what you're going to get.
Also, Buffalo's another one. Also, after the start of the season, and now we look at it, the Minnesota Vikings have lost 4 straight games, and they look like they're just totally imploding with their quarterback play. Their defense hasn't been nearly as strong, and they're not playing with confidence.
And you look at the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers deflecting a lot of the blame on his teammates. Not a real popular guy in Green Bay, from what I hear, with his teammates.
That's a weird division.
Brett Favre.
Look who's leading that division as of this taping. The Detroit Lions, right? They are. The Bears, the Vikings going south, the Packers, nobody can figure out. That is a weird division, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's still tight. I mean,
oh, yeah,
you've got the
anybody can win
Lions
it.
and the Vikings at 5-4, and then you've got the Packers just one game back at 4-5. Still anybody's division.
Sure.
Time to turn it around if you want to. Let's talk a little bit about the injuries in football. And NFL ratings are down for TV viewership. What do you attribute that to?
I can't
Is it
figure
poor
that
matchups? Is it the fact that these injuries have forced teams to use second and third stringers that people don't know about? The marquee players are not able to perform each and every week? What is it?
I don't know, because I think, to me, the NFL is a great product. It starts at 1, it ends at 4. Any team can win any week. You never see a spread over 10, usually, although this year's been a little bit funky. And you could be 2 and whatever, and then win the division the next year, like the Eagles. You know what I mean? So to me, the NFL has a great product, the best TV product there is. I love college football more than anything, but the NFL's got it. I mean, they got the replay down. They have other than the touchdown or the touchdown commercial kickoff commercial thing that drives you crazy, where you're just sitting there at your house like, when are we going to play football? Other than that, the NFL's got it down to a science, and I can't figure out what the problem is. Is it these weird games in London? There's one in Mexico City this week, I think. Is it just because nobody's heard a lot of the players? Like
Bad
you're
announcers,
saying?
Mike.
Yeah.
Three of us got to be
Crummy
in the booth.
announcers. Although
know
Mr.
what it
Sports
is.
sounds just like Daryl Johnson if you close
thank
close
you.
your eyes.
Welcome to the NFL today, ladies and
See, there
gentlemen.
he
No,
is,
I'm just
sitting
kidding.
there with Kenny Albert. I can't figure it out. Maybe you guys could help me on why these numbers are down, because to me it seems like especially with the team in Los Angeles, now you got even more people watching games. I can't figure it out.
I don't know. I think a lot of things go into it. The injuries, I don't
think it's the fun thing.
George, when I was a kid, the marquee players, they would be there. Oh, yeah, they banged up a little bit.
Right.
But they were out there almost each and every week.
Yeah,
Today,
tape it back up and get back
it's
in
a
there.
coin flip.
You know,
You're going to lose a marquee. I will guarantee you this upcoming week in the NFL, perhaps even starting tonight, you got, as we speak here, the Saints and the Panthers battling on Thursday Night Football. But every week there's a marquee name going down for, if not a substantial amount of time, than the entire season. And you got a bunch of
Maybe
no
it's
names.
been less performing from the teams, I think, as well. These primetime games, Monday night games, have been noticeably.
Oh, they stink, don't
Yeah,
they?
they're not nearly as exciting as even the Sunday night games this week or this season, as opposed to last season. And I think that's a big reason. I don't think people care. They care about their teams, but they don't care about as much the other teams enough to watch it.
Well, maybe the marquee guys just aren't that great. I mean, maybe Cam Newton's just not that great. Maybe Drew Brees is over the hill. Remember, he was a marquee guy. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is just not that great anymore. Look at the quarterbacks. Stafford, you're watching. Is he a marquee player?
Ryan,
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Matt Ryan. Is he a marquee player? Maybe they're just average players that are making their teams good, and they're not the studs that we used to see when we were growing up, or maybe we're just old and think that better football was played back when we were younger.
We glorified the Staubacks
Sure we
and the
do.
Kenny Stablers, if I could throw in the Bond
He threw that in there.
But for every one of those,
He's going to throw
there's-
that in there any
Burt
chance he
Jones.
gets.
There's a
And
Mike
Stabler.
Phipps out there that was awful. You know what I mean? But yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I think another thing real fast, John, a lot of these penalties, whether it's, people getting ejected, touchdown celebrations, I think people are just sick and tired of these touchdown celebration penalties and seeing the celebrations as well. That's just my take. Because when I'm seeing someone get into the end zone and they're dancing for 5 minutes, it's like, okay,
What about
move on.
proposing to the kicking net? Odell Beckham.
That's exactly
That's a beautiful
prime
thing.
example.
That's a beautiful
The
thing, John.
funny thing, it was funny when he threw his helmet at it and it came up and hit him in the face, and then he went over and apologized to it. But then when he got on a knee and proposed to it, I'm like, what is going? Why are we covering this?
We love to talk about
They're
it.
branding themselves. That's why.
Mike, huge college football fan, has talked about a heart and passion there. 4-team college football. We're starting to near the end of the regular season. As we sit here, unbeaten Bama, number 1. Ohio State moved up to 2. We had 3 teams go down this past weekend to vault the Buckeyes into the number 2 spot. Michigan at number 3.
How are they number 3? Could somebody
Clemson
tell
at
me
4.
how they go from 2 and lose and score 11 points on the road to Iowa, who is not ranked, and then Louisville moves up 1 spot and doesn't even
doesn't
crack the
make any
top 4?
sense.
We're going to be infuriated. I'm glad I'm an Ohio State fan today, but I have a feeling I'm going to be infuriated by the end of the year or either that or a Penn State fan, one of those two. I wouldn't want to be a Louisville fan, a Penn State fan, or maybe not an Ohio State fan at the end of the year because somebody's going to get the shaft.
Yep.
It's weird. We're going to have a committee of, 10 people deciding who goes to the
I know,
playoffs
it's scary.
when they should have 8 teams in the playoffs?
Is it based on talent and strength of schedule, or
What? Yeah,
is it
they don't
marketability?
know.
But when they look at these teams and you crunch for the Final Four, don't you think marketability
Yes.
and fan base has
Yes.
a lot to do with that?
Yes.
In fact, that could be argued the year that Ohio State won the national championship a couple years ago, vaulting over schools like
Yes.
TCU and Baylor. That was a big part of it.
I
Urban
agree.
Meyer, you got a marquee coach.
I would agree.
That's an advantage.
I would totally
That all
agree.
goes to it. It all
And it's a disadvantage for Louisville. Right?
and it comes back to money, as always. They're always, these people work for the corporation, so they're always, if they have the chance, going to put that big name coach in there over anybody else.
But you shouldn't have. I think these rankings, like you have one great team in Alabama, you have two pretty good teams, Ohio State, Michigan, and everybody else. Like if you're the number 10 team in Nebraska,
Yeah.
you should lose by 60 points.
Right.
You are not the number 10 team in the country if you're losing by 60 points, or there's a giant gap between 2 and 10. You know what I'm saying? And who else is Wisconsin's 7? Does anybody really think Wisconsin is the 7th best team in college football?
I
after
do
what
not.
we've
I mean,
seen?
we mentioned the top 4. Louisville's sitting at 5. They got Houston tonight as we tape. Washington's at 6. Wisconsin, as Mike mentioned, 7. Penn State out of the Big Ten at number 8. A team that handed the Buckeyes.
Who we all watch. Did we all watch Penn State?
Yep.
Are they the 8th best team in the country?
No.
No.
They weren't
No.
even ranked prior to the win against Ohio
Exactly.
State.
That's what I'm saying. These rankings are so weird, and these Big Ten teams are
How
overranked.
about Oklahoma battling back to number 9 under Stoops?
Good for them. Wow. Because they looked awful at the
Yeah, their
beginning
heads
of the
handed
year.
to them down in Norman early in the season by a young Ohio State squad. Now they've battled back to be number 9. And then Colorado at number 10.
Well, that's another one. I mean, we saw them against Michigan, and they got, 2 returns for touchdowns and then ended up losing that game. That's another team that shouldn't be in the top.
What about Western Michigan?
How
Out of the
about
MAC.
them?
Unbeaten. Broncos.
What are they, 20th-ish, something like that? They're in the top 20,
I thought
or
they have 14.
21st, something like that.
14.
So, yeah, that's interesting. And they beat some good teams along the way.
Well, how do you think this is all going to shake out? What do you see at the Horseshoe in a couple of weeks? Now, look, I certainly don't want to sit here and downsize Michigan State because it's never been easy to go to East Lansing and get a victory for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But let's face it, it's only human to look ahead to the big showdown with
All right, let's look
Harbaugh
ahead.
and the Wolverines.
Let's play it out.
What do you think?
I think Ohio State's going to win out, and I think they're going to miss the playoffs.
Really?
I think the Big Ten champions can go to the playoffs because they weighed it that way, especially if they win convincingly. Whoever went, like Ohio State did a couple of years ago.
Yep.
I think that team's going to vault. I think Ohio State's going to get the shaft, and they're going to end up in some bowl.
Yeah, Ohio State needs some help from Penn State. Another loss from Penn State would and a win out would solidify them.
What do you guys think?
I still think they carry a lot of weight and clout, and I go back to that Meyer influence, the fan base. I think that's something that's all going to be considered. And I think the result of the Michigan game, if Ohio State looks impressive in beating Michigan, who, by the way, has lost their quarterback for the season.
That's right.
With a broken collarbone, which would seem on paper to give Ohio State advantage. But don't forget, when Ohio State won the national championship, they did it with their third-string quarterback,
Right.
Cardale Jones.
And Michigan
possible.
State beat them with a backup quarterback last year. So who knows? But do you
It's
think
gonna-
Ohio State's going to lose?
I don't. I
Okay.
like
I
Ohio
don't
State.
either.
Do you think Ohio State's going to lose?
I don't.
Do you think Penn State's going to lose?
Oh, that's tough.
Penn State
I
still
don't.
scares me. I think they're definitely vulnerable.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so if Penn State goes to the Big Ten championship and wins it, do they get in?
Well, they're certainly going to be clamoring for that opportunity. Hey, we
Right.
beat Ohio State.
Right.
We deserved to
Sure.
get there.
They should be there.
But they didn't beat Michigan.
Exactly.
there you go.
There's so many aspects that go into this college
And
football
this is
playoff.
why we
and
need more
it's-
than 4 teams, Mike.
Exactly.
This is
and we
crazy.
will.
And we need
because
more
if
than
it's
10
crazy
people.
this year.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Sorry, Mike.
If it's crazy this year, it's going to change. Because that's kind of what you need. You need it to be a crazy mess. And once you have a mess, then we came up with a playoff, remember? Because it was a big
Right.
mess, and TCU or somebody didn't get what they should have got. And now we need another mess, and then it will expand a little bit. Plus, they're making so much money. They want money.
Right.
Right?
And I think, Josh, if certain conferences feel like they're being jilted, then there's going to be a clamoring for an expansion.
And there are
Definitely.
conferences.
And that's
that do-
already going on, like you said.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about NBA basketball. The Cavaliers lost last night, but in fairness, LeBron James not on the court. J.R. Smith also sat out. Still, the Cavs lead the East, 9-2, tied with Atlanta, who's also 9-2. You got Toronto, Charlotte, Chicago, top echelon of the Eastern teams. What's your impression of the Cavs so far?
Well, let me ask you this first before we get into that. What do you think of these guys resting games? Because back in our day, old people, you wouldn't see Larry Bird rest.
Right.
You wouldn't see Julius Erving sit a game out.
Right.
Especially on the road, they'd want the fans to come watch them.
And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played forever.
I know. I struggle. I'm glad because he's on my team, and I want him to rest because he plays in the Olympics, and the playoffs are too long. There's too many rounds. I get that, but I just don't know about this rest thing.
I don't like it this early. I mean, we're 11 games into the season. LeBron James is one of the most gifted athletes on the planet. He can play in a back-to-back game against a division opponent, an Eastern Conference opponent, potential playoff matchup against the Indiana Pacers and Paul George. So I don't like it this early. I like it down the stretch, last 10 games of the season maybe, to prevent injury or something, if you have that seed locked up. But I agree with you. I don't like it, especially this early.
Old guy.
Yeah, come on, John.
I am old guy. I got a bad knee, too, from 10 years ago. Torn ACL.
God.
Thanks for pointing it out,
just
Mike.
10 years? It seems like about 30.
I know. I've been limping around for a good long time. No, I like the Cavaliers. I still want to see more of this mix yet. I mean, they brought Dunleavy aboard, a three-point sharpshooter. I like to see a little bit more productivity off the bench. But the Atlanta Hawks, 9-2, and I'm not just saying that because they're 9-2. That's a team that's definitely on our tail.
You like the Hawks?
They're playing great basketball right
Better
now.
than the Raptors?
Raptors
Like if you had to
also good
pick,
basketball.
we all agree the Cavs are the best team in the East, right?
Yes,
I think we're going to take it.
So who's the second best?
Go ahead, John.
I
And I'll say.
I think Atlanta and Toronto's, a couple teams that's certainly going to give people their run. How about Charlotte? They're 7-3.
Charlotte is going to be
well.
the 5th seed going under the radar this whole season, but Eastern Conference matchup, I think it's going to be a rematch. I don't think Atlanta can get past Toronto. Toronto's got Valanciunas down low. I know Atlanta added Dwight Howard, and he's been playing amazing basketball for them thus far. But we all see this story with Dwight Howard. Like, we've seen this story with Dwight Howard before, how he gets off to a good start and he kind of tapers off. The injuries.
He's got a quad contusion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think the Raptors just have more experience. They went there last year. I think they have more experience. And DeMar DeRozan, early on in this season as well, has been lighting the league up scoring-wise.
Have you ever contused your quad?
Nope.
Just kind of curious.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Howard.
I think it's possible. It may happen today.
Leaving the set.
We disappointed LeBron James taking a lot of offense. Phil Jackson, legendary.
Yeah, what did Jackson say exactly?
Kind of quoting and saying that LeBron's posse referred to it was viewed in some conjecture as a racial comment, saying if it had been a white guy in a business thing, Maverick Carter and his group, which LeBron staunchly defended, and saying he's lost total respect for Phil Jackson. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it goes back to this. Phil Jackson is not a young guy, okay? So it goes back to maybe this generational type thing where 40 years ago, maybe that wouldn't have been as scrutinized. But when you say posse like Phil Jackson did, grouping three young African American people together, it kind of gives that demoralizing feeling to it. And what LeBron said, he said, quote, "It sucks that Phil Jackson would say something like that because of what he's built through his career with Maverick Carter and his agent Paul as well." So I don't know what he's doing. I don't know why he's even talking about something because it wasn't even the whole thing about staying the night over in Cleveland.
Well, this goes back to Pat Riley in Miami and how LeBron received favorable treatment, which he loved, he coveted, always brought his group, his entourage with him. And
Same in Cleveland.
And
that's one of the
basically
reasons he
painted
left.
LeBron to be a spoiled brat.
But I think if you know anything about Phil Jackson, and I'm not the biggest fan of Phil Jackson, but when he was with the New York Knicks in the 70s, I mean, he was probably the least racist person. And they had a lot of racial tension on that team with the guys they had on that team. And the city at that time and America at that time. So I don't think he meant it that way, but if it came off that way, and if you take it that way and you're an African American, then that's the end of it.
And
you can't argue with that.
The way it's been covered the last few days, that is now the national perception of how this came off, and LeBron solidified that in his media coverage, talking about it.
Well, I think this also ties into politics to some degree because there's a lot of unrest amongst minorities after Trump's win over Hillary Clinton. And so you have tension right there amongst the minorities. And then for Phil Jackson, I just think the timing was
it's bad.
Totally bad.
He had no business even bringing that up. That he wasn't involved in any part of the discussion. So I don't know. When you target the best player on the planet like that, you're going to get backlash.
Meantime, out west, although they lost last night, the LA Clippers have won 10 of their first 12 ball games. Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, getting the job done out there, but they said we don't want to be referred to as the best team in basketball.
Right.
Clippers, any surprises for you there?
They're getting off to a hot start, and I think Chris Paul, like always, he does a good job leading them. And Doc Rivers,
DeAndre Jordan,
Blake Griffin too. They're off to a hot start. They're riding that momentum right now. I think it's going to taper off. It's a matter of time before Golden State, Kevin Durant really take off and put together a nice winning streak. Same thing with the San Antonio Spurs. This is Kawhi Leonard's team now, as Tim Duncan's retired, and they'll actually just the Spurs will actually be retiring his jersey coming up into December as well. But I think the Clippers, this is just a hot start. I think they'll finish top 3 in the West, but once it gets to that playoff, I don't think anything's going to be different than last year.
I think on mere talent alone, guys, you got to go with Golden State. But I questioned prior to the season, even with the acquisition of Kevin Durant and as high profile as that was, whether they would have chemistry issues with Golden State. So they're getting by on talent. I do see some defensive lapses and perhaps a vulnerability in protecting the rim. But still, Golden State's 9-2, and as you mentioned, San Antonio at 9-3. So those are your top 3 out west.
I think if you look at the West and you say to yourself, well, who's going to stop them? Who's going to defend these teams? Clippers can score. The Warriors can score. Maybe San Antonio, just because their toughness and their coach. Maybe Houston can defend them a little bit. Oklahoma City is still pretty good. But and you think to yourself, well, eventually somebody's going to stop them. Well, they don't. Golden State proved last year, if you just outscore everybody, you can still win. And that's what they did until they ran into the buzzsaw at the end. So to say that the Clippers, because they can score so much and they really don't have much on defense, in my opinion, are in trouble, I don't think they're in trouble. I think those top 3 teams, Spurs, Warriors, Clippers. If you throw in the Thunder in Houston, I wouldn't be upset. Man, the West is just fun to watch.
It is,
isn't it? I like to sit back and just watch. It's like watching an all-star game. They're shooting from everywhere.
Another team I like watching early part of the season is the Los Angeles Lakers.
How about those young guys?
They are sitting at 7-5 as we do this
boys.
right now. Ingram's getting in there. He's getting his minutes.
Randall Nance was playing well at one time.
They're really exciting to watch. Luke Walton really has that team playing hard for them, and I think once this whole Kobe Bryant thing, final ride deal was over, that really was a weight off their shoulders, because night in, night out, everyone was focused on Kobe Bryant. It was hard for them to focus on the Lakers and on winning games. Would you guys agree?
I thought that, yes. And I thought last year, at the end of the year, somebody could have got Russell for a song, D'Angelo Russell, because they were just sick of his act, and he was angering all the players on the team. I thought maybe the Cavs or somebody, because he's played in Ohio. I thought maybe somebody would make a run for that guy and just see if maybe they could get him. But to the Lakers' credit, they held it together. They kept him on the team, and they got some pieces around him. And like you said, they have a good coach, I think, now too. So they're going to be fun. I think, 2 years away, maybe, from doing anything. But, they're a good team to watch, that's for sure.
Has the distance between Golden State, and let's just, for devil's advocate's sake, assume it's Golden State in Cleveland again, because that's what the prognosticators are saying in a third straight rubber match championship showdown. Has the distance widened between the Cavs and Golden State?
Between the Cavs and Golden State? I think the Golden State in that conference has widened. For sure. You always hope, I guess if I'm a Cavs fan, I hope somebody's going to beat them up a little bit and knock them around a little bit in the conference series before they get to the finals. But I don't think there's any doubt it's Golden State and Cleveland in the finals. And the best thing Cleveland has going for it is they have the X factor. They got the best player. And Golden State knows they have the best player, and that bothers Golden State. And it scares Golden State a little bit. And I think once they saw him get going last year, they couldn't stop it.
And for a long time, Mike, as good as Kevin Durant is, it's been reputed that LeBron James gets inside his head.
I think so too.
There's an
I think he gets
intimidation
inside all their
factor
heads.
with Durant when he speaks about LeBron James. So, that's something to consider down the road as well.
Well, look at LeBron James last year in the finals, games 5, 6, and 7 specifically. He definitely got in Stephen Curry's head. He he led Curry to throw his mouthpiece at a fan and get ejected. I mean, that was maybe over a tic-tac call.
He got
but
green
LeBron
ejected?
was in his head. LeBron was in Draymond Green's head as well. There's no denying it. He has that capability without doing it, obviously. Like, he doesn't, you know, Draymond Green can, you know, poke you around or, you know, kick you.
But if we sat here right now, would anyone be surprised if Golden State won the NBA championship?
No.
No.
Are
Absolutely
they
not.
the favorites?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, you just got to look at talent alone.
Oh, it's an all-star team.
And a big thank you to WFMJ TV 21 Mike Case. He's been abducted by aliens. He's had to leave the show, unfortunately. We hope to find Mike soon. Let's talk about college basketball a little bit. It's early on in the campaign. Duke and Kentucky right now at the top. Villanova, Oregon, North Carolina, Indiana, Ohio State's already lost one game. What are your thoughts on, is it going to be a Duke and Kentucky again?
That's the way it's looking. That's the way it's been for how many years now, it seems.
Coach
they're always,
K?
Yeah,
Calipari?
Coach K and Calipari, they go ahead, you know, back and forth off each other for that national spotlight, it seems, all the time. But it always is fun to watch, and it's always exciting. College basketball is always such a big deal in March, but it's always good to watch early in the season because you can see these teams develop going into the tournament and, you know, keep your eye on some of these smaller teams that might make their way in. Like, for example, if you keep an eye on the MAC conference with Akron and, you know, YSU trying to get in there as well. Anything can happen. Anything can happen, and college basketball for me is most fun in the beginning as well as March Madness.
You know, like Popovich is so revered in the NBA. I think you could say the same for Coach K with Duke Blue Devils. Calipari, one and done, has taken a lot of criticism. By the way, a former guest of mine, when I was doing Youngstown State University basketball play-by-play for a couple of campaigns, John Robick was our coach for a couple of those seasons and would bring me some really cool guests, halftime and pregame. Larry Brown was one, who he was a protege of, and John Calipari was another. And they have that tough New England mentality, very tough. But your thoughts on one and done process for Calipari? And I guess it's just a launch board. It's a springboard to get into the NBA. It's all about the dollars, not necessarily the education.
Yeah, it's totally different. It kind of relates to college football and the NFL too. It's a totally different scheme. The players are different. These players are millionaires. You know, they lead their own lives. They have their own families. They're not young 22-year-olds. So the adjustment period can be very difficult for some coaches like Larry Brown, who got his team to the playoffs in his first year in Charlotte. So I think more or less it's on that individual and how he handles that team and the way the players look at him. Because the management, if the management's going to bring you in, like, you're good with them. But the way the players, if the players don't like you or not buying in, you know, then the management is going to portray that as well.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, although it's early on in the campaign, just like with the NBA and the NHL, we certainly, because we don't have a franchise in Cleveland, rooting for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I do. I hope they do well. My best friend has season tickets. Penguins off to a good start. Chicago, of course. New York Rangers, Canadiens, Ottawa, Tampa Bay, some of the top teams out there as well. But nothing but the best of luck to the Pittsburgh Penguins. One thing I want to touch upon, if we can get back to football for just a second, Josh, and I get your opinion on this. You know, Mike Case was making fun of me because I talk about the Raiders and Kenny Stabler a lot, but I want to talk about this because it's been newsworthy as of late. The NFL Hall of Fame, and I attended the induction ceremonies this past August at the invitation of Kendra Stabler, the oldest daughter for Kenny Stabler, who was inducted posthumously into the Hall of Fame, which they slighted the father. I mean, it was a quarter century way too late, and Kenny no longer with us, having passed of July of last year of colon cancer. But they denied his family a ring and a jacket, and the Hall of Fame selection committee has a rule that no deceased members will get rings and jackets. And one of the explanations given, because they didn't want somebody to resell for profit, my question is this. If you have a living Hall of Fame member that's inducted now,
who's to say that they won't do it anyway?
Give it to his child, his grandchild, or something, and they're going to sell it up. That's okay? So I don't understand the policy at all. And the Stabler family feels slighted, and quite
rightfully
frankly,
so, John. Especially because, like you said before, it's been so long. Like this whole process should have happened a long time ago, 2 years ago. So. That didn't make sense. That was kind of like a cop-out almost, you know, to try and keep the integrity of Ken Stabler, and, you know, I didn't I'm not buying into any
Well,
of
first
that.
of all,
I think
they keep the guy out for a number of years. He's gone. He can't be around to enjoy it, okay? And his family had to endure that pain and suffering, and now they feel slighted again. And Kendra, very openly coming out and saying, look, I'm not just doing this for my father. I'm doing it for every deceased member. Dick Stanfield. Posthumously inducted into this class with Brett Favre and the rest of the gang this past August. But same thing with his family.
It doesn't
Bring in
make
a jacket,
sense.
give it to the family.
It's the family's right. I mean, that Hall of Famer was a part of that family first, before anything else, before the NFL. So, and I'm sure the struggles that the Stabler family went through while Ken wasn't there, and he has children, and they should have the right to maintain those things from the Hall of Fame, and I don't see why that couldn't happen or why that can't happen going forward.
Let's talk a little bit more about the NFL. I want to get back to that for just a second. We were talking about the Dallas Cowboys and how Dak Prescott has taken control of that organization. And just because Tony Romo comes out and says, look, it's Dak's team, which is a really incredible thing to do, he's still an injury away from perhaps getting back out there and becoming the hero before the season's over.
Right.
For example, when the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl last year with Brock Osweiler playing quarterback down the stretch, would you have thought that Peyton Manning would end up being the Super Bowl winning quarterback and ending his career on a high note like that? No one would have thought that.
Yep. It's weird because it's obvious now that Tony Romo has had this press conference, I should say, that he knows Dak Prescott is the future. There's no question about it. I mean, the way he's playing, he's led this team to 8 straight victories after an opening day loss at home. 8 straight victories. I mean, you can't change that formula. Last episode, we were talking about if Jerry Jones was going to, but since then, he's won 4 games, and and Tony Romo knows he can't mess. The coaching staff and Jerry Jones can't mess up that chemistry that he's got with these receivers now. And honestly, you can't help but feel bad for Tony Romo to a certain extent, because he's watching his dream job on America's team get swept right away from him.
Well, to hear him saying, I was Dak at one time. I was that young kid. I know it's a great time in your life. I was him. And he basically said, look, this hurts. This is my team. This is what I built my entire life leading up to. I'm chomping at the bit. He said it's hard.
Right.
He's a team guy, but it's hard to sit on the sidelines and watch when you're ready to go.
How good is this for Dak Prescott, though? And what I mean by that is that he has Tony Romo's support. You know what I mean? Tony Romo's going to be there to guide him along like he has throughout this process, but I don't even think Tony Romo knew it was going to take off this well for the Cowboys, right?
But because of the controversy, is Prescott on a short leash? Everything's gone so well to this point, but let's say things start to go south a little bit. Is it time to bring? And we're going to start this controversy.
With Jerry Jones, it's an open book. You never know what's going to happen with Jerry Jones, and you're never going to know what happens with Jason Garrett, what kind of move he's going to make. If Dak Prescott in the next 4 games goes, 1-3 and throws a couple interceptions and start turning the ball over as playoffs come closer and closer and closer, Tony Romo's healthy. Can't you see it?
Oh, yeah. Ezekiel Elliott just tearing it up. I knew he was good. This good? I don't know. I haven't seen anything like this in a long time. He's just ripping through the NFL. I think maybe a little tentative for the first couple of games, but it seems like he's figured it out. He's cutting off his blockers at angles and he's got great open field vision. You could ask the Pittsburgh Steelers about that. Did you expect this type of productivity in his rookie campaign?
No, absolutely not. Just like Dak Prescott. No one saw this coming. Just like Carson Wentz when his 4-0 start for the Eagles. That has since tapered off, but Ezekiel Elliott has kept this up. He's getting better as the weeks go on, and we always give credit to that offensive line, and they do great things for that team, but he is a star. Like you said, that open field vision and those moves he can make, and his speed is out of this world. So he's here to stay. Barring an injury, he's here to stay, and he's going to continue running over the league, I think.
Josh, I still have visions of Elliott in the Alabama secondary running by the Tide, and to sit there and highlight his elite athleticism against the speed-laden Alabama Crimson Tide defense and Coach Saban. But when you look, if we can turn it back to college football for just a second, talking about Elliott, the last back to really, in my opinion, really take hold and beat Alabama's defense, which led to a big victory, but the Tide looked unstoppable. So if I look toward an Ohio State-Alabama matchup, we don't have an Ezekiel Elliott back there this year. When we have some nice ball players, Samuels is certainly one of them, but do you think that's going to be a concern for you against Alabama's defense?
Yes, it's going to be a grinded out kind of game. I mean, we've seen Ohio State struggle this season against Wisconsin, against
They
Penn State.
seem as if they're picking it up.
Yes, they do. But again, they haven't faced Alabama yet.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't faced that defense and that offense, for that matter, with Derrick Henry. So it does pose a challenge. I think Ohio State, if that were to be the matchup, I think they could beat them. Anyone in that stage can beat anybody else, I think. But Alabama, if that was the scenario, the way I see it, Alabama wins. They've been this dominant all season. They've been this dominant leading up to the playoffs. They're going to be dominant in the playoffs. I think they take it home.
Well, they're saying no matter who Alabama would play, if the game were held today, they would guarantee a 10-point favorite at the very least. But
that's how it always is, though, in this kind of situation. We see that happening in the NFL all the time. Like last year, the Carolina Panthers got off to that unbelievable start, locked to win the Super Bowl. And look what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So.
J.T. Barrett, has he performed up to expectations? This was a young football team. No one, certainly the standards and the bar set really high for Ohio State.
And I think that was part of the issue.
But I think you go down to Oklahoma, you suddenly wake everyone up. Hey, we just reloaded and everything. But here we are in a position where we're number 2 with an opportunity to play the Tide in a rematch for the championship.
Right. A lot more speculation was on them early on when they were struggling. Again, they lost to that Penn State, and they struggled against Wisconsin too. So I think a lot of flack was on them then. Mm-hmm. But now that they've strung these wins together, they got Michigan State coming up, and then that big showdown with Michigan to decide who could potentially get into the college football playoff in that Final Four. But I think he's done a good job managing the team. He's got we know he has a cannon. He can run. He does a very good job of maintaining that offense and doesn't turn the ball over.
And, you look at the college football playoff scene, too. There's going to be somebody that's going to be very upset, and that's why lobbying for bigger than 4 schools to get in. I never liked the BCS. I'm still not a big fan of 4-team college football playoff because I know when I was affiliated with Youngstown State University, and back then in the 1AA, we get together for the selection committee hearings, and there were 16 teams, and there were still people squabbling about that. If the NFL did that, there's a lot of teams that are red hot, got off to bad starts, playing their best football toward playoff time that would have been denied an opportunity. Did the Packers win a Super Bowl one year? Were they 9-7? I think so.
Yeah, was that the year they beat Pittsburgh?
I believe, and they were. I think they went in as a 9-7 team.
Yeah.
So if that were college football, the Packers never even get that opportunity.
Right.
But they're playing great football at the end of the season. That's the key. You got to peak.
It's gonna, if not after this year, like we talked about when Mike Case was with us, if not 2 years from now, it's gonna get shaken up again. There's too much flack with it from the universities themselves, from the sports directors, from media coverage even. There's always going to be a constant backlash with this kind of setup. So I think that eventually, maybe not at the end of this year, but eventually will cause a shakeup.
And I want to talk a little bit about the local level. I talked about the outside of the broadcast. Josh, associated with the Fitch Falcons football program. What's the future of Fitch football, if I could ask? A lot of people in Austintown, of course, going to be viewing this. So
Absolutely.
Be careful what you say.
Right. No, I know. Well, they have 2 potential quarterbacks that are going to start next year. Nate Fowler, who started most of the season, got them to a 500 record, and Joey Zielinski, who came on the last 3 games of the season, was thrown in there as they were losing in the third to last game of the season to provide a spark, and he did, rallied, and almost came back and beat a very good team in overtime. They ended up losing. He started those last 2 games and did very well, was able to beat Boardman, and then unfortunately the Falcons fell short against the Cardinal Mooney Cardinals last game of the year. So they have some question marks on offense going into next season, but the thing I like that they did this year on offense is they switched it up. They weren't a very traditional type Fitch Falcon football team that we've seen in the past. They really got under center at times. They threw a lot more passing around at times, even gave a triple option read on offense. And their defense, they've got some playmakers. Bryce Wormuth is coming back for his senior year next season, so he'll be a force on the defensive line. He led the team in sacks and in tackles this season. So they have potential. They got to get that quarterback situation figured out, and they got to get their size has to improve a little bit, I think. I know you really don't get to draft your players in high school football.
Right. You kind of work with what you have.
Right. But their size, if they improve their size a little bit, become a little bit more physical, I think they have a shot at making the playoffs next season.
And of course, I work at Greenwood Chevrolet, and Greg Greenwood has been nothing but totally supportive of the Austintown Fitch sports.
One of our great sponsors here in Austintown too is Greenwood.
Absolutely a great guy. Well, I'd like to thank Mike Case for joining us. Our next show, we are going to have Josh Fitch, Gary House to join us. Extensive sports media coverage with the Ohio State football program, so we'll be talking to him. Special thank yous to Gina Cardillo, also Dan Johnson, Josh Huntery, Dan Clark, and Josh Cornell. Thank you for watching the Mr. Sports Show, and we'll see you next time.
In association with Austintown Local Schools and Austintown Township.